Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Adult Improver series of Perpetual Chess. This, of course, is a long-running series where we highlight the chess story of an amateur, and we've got a fun one for you coming up. If you enjoy these amateur spotlights, be sure to check out the Adult Improver playlist on Spotify. You can also check out the Perpetual Chess website where I link to the vast catalog of amateur interviews to accompany our regular catalog of interviews with grandmasters, authors, trainers, and grassroots chess organizers. Speaking of grassroots, I wanted to let you all know about a fun chess event that I also mentioned and attended last year. If you're in or around New York City, Chess in the Schools, which is a great nonprofit dedicated to providing free chess instruction in classroom and after school and tournament chess instruction to New York City public schools. They're doing their annual fundraiser, which is chess and poker themed, and it will actually be hosted this year by NYC native and amazing commentator Grandmaster Robert Hess. So that's on May 1st, 2025 in New York City. Again, all the proceeds go to support Chess in the Schools. So if you're interested in playing or just attending and want to support this great organization, I'll put the link in the description. The deadline for signing up, if you choose to do so, is April 17th, and I will be there. I was there last year, excited to go again. So if you hear about this and come, please do come say hi. So link for that in the description, but let's get you to a fun Adult Improver interview with Omar Mills. Here it is. We are joined today by someone I am a longtime fan of. He is a Florida-based product manager at Disney Parks by day. He's also a musician and a chess diehard by night. He's built a substantial online following by sharing his chess ups and downs. He fell for chess during the pandemic, and I think it's fair to say he's been obsessed ever since. I interviewed him for the How to Chess podcast. That's season 2, episode 4. That one was about specifically his first tournament in 2022. But more than anything, he's an online player. He's gotten a bit better at chess over the years since he got into it during the Queen's Gambit. But when I look at his chess.com rating graph, the main thing I see is squiggles, a lot of squiggles. So that, of course, means he's played a lot of games, over 2,400 rapid games in 3 years. And as luck would have it, he is out with a new Chessable course called Chess Destiny, lessons from an adult improver and his coach. His coach is friend of the pod, the YouTube star NM Robert Ramirez. So I am excited to welcome to Perpetual Chess and discuss all of this. Omar Mills. How's it going, Omar?
Man, it's fantastic. And as I told you, this is a grail moment for me. This is, catching the Roadrunner for me. I've from the first time I heard about, really started getting into it and heard about this podcast, this was one of those ones where you say, I'd have to get a title in order to be on that. I don't know if I'll, maybe someday, if I'm lucky. So just grateful. Thank you for even allowing me to be on.
You did get a title, ChessvonDoom. So for listeners who don't know, that's Omar's. That's his Twitter handle. I think your Instagram too, even though you don't post there as much.
It's everything. It's what's so funny is it was really just. I think I may have shared this with you already. I know I've said it before in podcast interviews. Like I tried to think of what was the dumbest thing I could come up with to create chess memes. And I was like, Dr. Doom is like the funniest villain, just so over the top and ridiculous. And so I was like, oh, you know what? I'll do that. And the whole idea was just for meme chess, on X or on Instagram. And then it just kind of stuck. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll just, it's funny enough, it was available everywhere. Like no one else had decided to be that.
Now maybe you need to add some intrigue and turn it into an abbreviation, like NMCM, you can call it
right.
CVD, Omar Mills. What's the CVD title? I don't know what that is.
Exactly.
But anyway, let's dig into your course. So Omar, first of all, I got to get my one tough question out of the way. So you're rated, I know, as I said, lots of squiggles, but about 1250 chess.com rapid. Of course, you do have Robert Ramirez helping you out, which adds a lot to the course. I checked it out. But for anyone listening, why would a 1250 online make a Chessable course?
I asked the same question. When they came, they approached me back in February of 2024. And Chessable was like, hey, your name came up in a meeting, this morning. And I was like, why? Were you talking about really bad chess players. Like, is
Cheat
that,
detection?
yeah,
What
yeah,
did
is
I
that,
do?
yeah, it's like, is that what it was? We're like, what did I do? And they were like, no, we feel like you should make a chess course for beginners. And I literally said to them, I'm like, you do know I'm awful at this, right? And they were like, yes. And that's why we want you. And I said, okay, well, I'm intrigued. Like, how's that going to work? And they were like, well, essentially what happened between the Queen's Gambit and then all of the drama, a lot of people, shocker, became more interested. Not so much after the Queen's Gambit. That was like the first wave. The second wave was all Cheatgate and all the different things that were going on. People had renewed interest. And as a result, you've got all these adult improvers either rediscovering chess or coming to chess for the first time, and there's no courses. And so they came to me and they said, you've been doing this now for about 3 years. Would you be interested in this? And I said, yeah, but I don't know that I know anything well enough, and they were like, no. What we really want you to do is they'd heard some of the podcast interviews I'd done and some of the stories I told. And they were like, we want you to take that and make that into a chess course. They were like, we'll help you with the chess portion, but it's your course and you can start to figure out what it is that you want to do. So we spent months just coming up with the criteria that we wanted to come up with. And I started thinking about it, and it sort of took on a life of its own, because what I realized was I wasn't creating a chess course, or my journey really wasn't about, hey, here's how you get better at chess. It was always, here's how you can handle the emotional roller coaster of chess, trying to pursue it as an adult with limited time. And that, to me, Ben, is the great equalizer, or I should say the known unknown as you go into it. You go into it thinking, because we're all the heroes of our own story. We all think that you're that one-on-one. And this is why I like to teach it that way. I'll say, and one thing I say in the course is, why not you? Do what you can't, is one of the things that I love to say. And I'll never tell someone not to believe that they're the best, or not to pursue a thing, or if you want to be a grandmaster, why not you? You might be that one of one who, changed the entire narrative. There's a strong chance you're not, but what if? Why not? I would rather believe and fail than never believe, is kind of the mindset that I'll have, with it. But when you have that mindset, what benefits you so much in that mindset doesn't prepare you for what chess requires the most of you, which is losing. You are going to lose, and you've got to be okay with getting your butt kicked, because it's required for growth. And so you'll hear all the different catchphrases, or the t-shirt, wisdom, or the bumper sticker wisdom of greatness is a process, trust the process. And that's great when you don't lose, when you haven't played a game today. But the minute you start to lose, all of us, if you invest that kind of time, I think about this, if I had done anything else for 4 straight years, every day, to the extent that I've done chess, like I don't miss. If I had done anything else in life for that amount of time, I wouldn't be 1250. You master anything else you pour that kind of time into. But what I ended up figuring out was how to have a mindset of dealing with things when you, for example, okay, let me say it this way. We think going into chess is like science or like a recipe, and it's not. And that's where it kind of gets you. You're like, I had all the ingredients. I followed the recipe. I should have a cake. And half the time you will, but half the time you won't. And that half that you don't get a cake teaches you how to make a better cake when you do get one. And that's the part that messes you up, because you're fine. I give an example from today. I was kind of looking at my stats today, trying to be disciplined about how many games I play. I'm addicted to playing, as I think I've told you that. Like I'm addicted.
I looked at your profile, man. You don't have to tell me.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm 100% addicted to playing. Far more than I am studying or learning. It's still a problem. And this is one of the things I actually talk about in the course, where I try to tell people, you've got to fall in love with learning. I say that, mind you, my hypocrisy it has limits. But I'm at least owning it and saying, I'm total hypocrite in this. I have not mastered this at all. I'm addicted to playing, so I try to manage the emotions of that. And what I would say to people, if you're like me and you're addicted to playing, well, then know that going in, own it, and don't be mad. It's kind of like playing without increment. You can't be mad when you flag if you clicked on 10 plus 0 or 3 plus 0. Don't be mad if you flag. Don't be mad if you lose a lot, if you play a lot. It kind of comes with it. But having the mindset of, all right, I have to be okay with the fact that chess is one of the few things in life that requires losing in order for you to improve. It's a hard thing for an adult to swallow, because we have a lot that we bring to the table. Anyway, one, we're all skeptical because we're not children. And so you're a national master. You could give me chess advice for an hour and I'm probably not going to follow it until I decide that it's right because I'm an adult. And you've forgotten more chess than I'll ever know. And that just comes with being an adult, coming to the table and saying, well, no, well, how do I know he knows? I've done this to all my coaches. And it's not that I don't believe him, because if I didn't believe him, why did I hire him? But it's just one of those things that you don't even realize is in you as an adult improver. And so it's very different coming to the table. So what I try to do in this is say, talk to those things that nobody told me that I found out the hard way over 4 years. You know, when I'm teaching in the course, and to say things like, all right, there are going to be moments where after a tilt, you're going to be demoralized. And if you don't understand why you're doing this, it will not last, because there's too many other things that vie for your attention, especially if you got kids, you got a job. You have to look and say, well, why in the world am I wasting my time doing this? I'm not getting any better. But the truth is you actually are. But from an ego standpoint, or from just a mindset standpoint, it's hard to see. Like, chess growth is nearly impossible to see because we're looking generally in one place, and it's that 4-digit number. You don't see it in all the other areas that, you typically don't see it in those other areas. And so what I'm trying to get people to do is what I'm still learning to do, which is fall in love with learning, fall in love with the process, and keep going no matter what. Like, if you get in for the right reason. My why is people. And so that's a good why to have. And that keeps me coming back. But that's difficult for an adult to do, because especially if you grow up in the West, you grow up here, man. Again, we worship achievement, man. Like, what have you done? I am what I do, and it defines my worth. That's typically what we do. And so I'm trying to come against that a little bit and say, you are what you do, but it doesn't define your worth. You had worth when you showed up. So if you have that mindset, it kind of takes failure, it redefines it. It reimagines it. Instead of failure, it's growth, it's process. And if you can do that and manage the emotions around that, then you're going to have a very long chess career where you'd be amazed at where it can take you. Again, I'm 1250, but I got a course on Chessable. I didn't start to do that. I didn't wake up and say, I'm going to create a chess course. I said, I want to be a GM. I'll take this. That's not a terrible outcome, but I didn't plan on it. But what I'm teaching people is, here's how you have to think going into this as an adult. Here's how you got to be okay with these things. Don't make these mistakes. And has less to do with what's on the board and more to do with how you think about things related to chess. You can apply these same things to life that I'm getting into. That was a real long answer, man. Let me let you react.
Well, there's a lot to react to. I mean, I feel like you encapsulated a lot of what I was trying to say in my book. You think it's about one thing, but it's really about another.
Yes.
And I'm glad to have you on, because as I say in my book, like, I highlight all these people who make these absurd, rare rating gains, but I do mention that those are the outliers. And I think your experience is actually more typical. And the fact that you're still able to find meaning from all this time you're putting in without necessarily getting the rating gain that you thought you would, like, that's kind of the holy grail. Also, just wanted to mention, it sounds like you're kind of it sounds like you've kind of been through it in terms of coaches advising you maybe about playing too much. I think, as I've mentioned many times, I think playing is great. I would hope that you review and try to extract a lesson from every game. Right. But the actual, at your level, I think playing is basically the best thing you can do, as long as you're focused and trying to derive lessons from it.
It's funny you say that. And this has always been my response to when people say you're playing too much. Nobody says you're playing too much if you win all your games. If you're on a winning streak, it's like, wow, you're just great. If you tilt, you're playing too much. If you win all your games, nobody ever asks you to time control. Unless it's like a ridiculous win and they go, oh, that had to be blitz. That had to be bullet. But if you just win, no one cares. No one thinks about it. It's when you don't win that the advice comes out of, well, are you playing longer games? And again, I'm not saying that advice isn't wrong. I say that I'm somebody who's not, I love playing fast. Fast chess is my favorite kind of chess to play. But I also understand that if you actually want to get good, you have to play 15-10s. You've got to play longer games, because you give yourself an opportunity. What I'm currently doing, what's working really well right now, is overdosing on tactics. There's more tactics than I'm doing anything else. And then I'll play a very limited amount of games. I either have and I show this in the course, I have a 6-sided die. For those of you that are listening, I'm holding it up. You can't see it. But I will roll that, and that caps my game sometimes.
Oh,
I will
okay.
also do and this is recent, this is as of like the last week or so, I'll set a timer for 30 minutes, pick a time control, and I'll play for as long as I have time. And if it's a 15-minute game, you might get one in 30 minutes. If it's blitz, you might get 10 if it's 3 minute 3+0s or what have you. I will review every game after I finish playing, and then before I play the next one. Especially if I lose, then it's like, okay, if I lose because I hung something, then it's fairly quick. But you try to do like a cursory review, and that kind of helps limit my how often I tilt, because I've capped it. Like when it's done, and I just have to be. What I'm finding now is more my discipline and how I approach it. But anyway, all of that to say, the heavy volume of play certainly has its benefits, so long as you can manage the emotional response when you lose. And when people will say to you, well, again, all the coaching advice kind of goes out the window if you're winning, but it becomes far more applicable if you don't win. And so I have found that the coaching advice isn't wrong, but we tend to listen or not listen, or give it or not give it based on how someone is performing. So if somebody's and I say this in the course, you could be on a 10-game winning streak and be a horrible player because you're not doing any of the things that you're supposed to do. So either the advice is sound or it isn't. Either you're playing too much, even if you win all your games, or it doesn't matter. And so the question I would have rhetorically is, well, what becomes too many games? And I think it's so subjective, what I have come to find. And this is why where I land on this is listen to your coaches, but you got to figure out what works best for you and your journey. If you're the type of person that's like, you know what, I'm going to play 50 games every day, and I'm not going to look at anything, and that's working. All right, that'll work for a time. You're eventually going to run into somebody that's better than you, that's going to beat you, and that may or may not work, as you want it to. But at the end of the day, what you'll get from that is, I played 50 games, that didn't work. Let me pivot. Let me do something else, and maybe that will work a little bit better for me. It's more own the journey for yourself. If there's things that are not working well, then quickly pivot from those things. But also, too, in terms of coaches, they know what they're talking about. And if you can apply what they're saying sooner rather than later, you'll find that thing. What I found is I landed in a space where I'm listening, but it took me a lot longer to get there. But I wouldn't change that journey, because now that I have arrived in that space, it means something because I got there the way I needed to get there. Nobody told me, well, you have to do it this way. I don't think I would have believed it. And I think this is unique for adults, because we come to it with so much skepticism just because we're grown. A child is going to listen to that, but adult may not necessarily listen to it. But I find that it sort of ebbs and flows. I have to, I guess, learn the hard way on these things. But once it's solid, and then you say, okay, now I'm absolutely going to do this. This is actually what I refer to in the course as the rule of three. An adult has to fail at something 3 times.
Yeah, I like that.
Before it becomes gospel. I can tell you between Robert or Ian Harris or Bruno Tuzzi, Mile the Butcher, like all the people that I've had an opportunity to be coached by, they've all kind of said the same things. You should play longer games. You should analyze your games. You should do these things. And none of that is untrue. And the more I do it, again, this is why I'm overdosing now on tactics. Bruna used to tell me all the time, like, Omar, you've got to do more tactics. Like she would beat that into me. And when I do that, I just checked the stats. For March, I had like a 70% winning percentage. Like I won 41 games. I think most of those were blitz. 41 games, I had 17 losses, and I had like 1 draw. And I did something like 800 tactics over the course of that, from I'd say March 13th through March 31st, close to around 800 tactics, about 7 hours of tactics. And I looked at the stats and I was like, oh, that's who you can be when you listen. And what's interesting is those amount of games, I think it's like 69 some odd games, that's light for me in that amount of time. It's probably a ton for somebody else, but that's a light amount of games for me. That's me capping it and saying, okay, I'm not going to play as much. I think the total I had about 7 of those were like rapid games, or 8 or something like that, or longer games, 15, 10, what have you. So I know what I can do if I'm disciplined, and if I'm really adamant about that. And if I'm not, then it goes off the rails. and then I have to go through the emotional piece. What I'm trying to get people to do is like you're trying to teach somebody what not to do while you're still figuring it out yourself. It's weird. It's unique in that sense. I don't know. I may not be making any sense to anybody as I'm saying. I'm kind of feeling it as I'm saying it out loud. Kind of sounding it out.
There's part of me feels like it's like there's a subconscious at least part that's like trying to find the balance between what a coach would tell you would optimize your improvement time versus like what you actually enjoy. And it's like this constant,
well said, Ben.
It's this constant push and pull. So it's like when you make a course, you have to tell people what they should do. But in reality, you know, you've probably, you know, you've talked in the past about how when you got into chess, you're like, you know, how lucky is the chess world to have found me? You know, they got a new world champion in town.
You're not wrong.
And then,
you're not wrong. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, okay, you know, Magnus, you know, give me the belt. You know, it's kind of where I was.
Have you heard the news, Magnus?
I'm here. You know, like, you know, your time is up. My time is now, as John Cena would say, right? Yeah.
Omar is coming.
Exactly.
So, but as you've come to grips with that, you still need to think about like, okay, like how do I, you know, the ultimate question, what role does chess play in my life? Right, and it's one thing to get better, but it sounds to me like you enjoy the process of like veering too far in one direction and pulling yourself back in, you know, playing too much, and then maybe veering too far and like you're studying too much and you're not having any fun and like pulling yourself back in. And that in itself can be like, that's your whole life chess wise. You know, obviously there's other things going on in life, but for the chess portion of your life, it's a constant battle to find that calibration. One other thing I wanted to mention from what you said is what you said about like needing to be told things, the rule of three, needing to be told things 3 times, as you mentioned in your course. I recently interviewed Grandmaster Noel Studer, who's always very insightful on these things. And he wrote a blog post called Why CEOs, I said, suck at improving at chess, but it's actually don't improve that much at chess. And I think it's exactly what you were saying. When you're a kid, if someone tells you something, you'll often just do it. But as an adult, you know, you've achieved things in other fields. I want to get a story out of you about what you learned from a certain musician that we'll get to. Yeah. But like, so you come in with your own both successful, you know, conclusions from other fields and your own preconceived notions. So I think it's totally normal, even though it is a bit counterproductive if you're trying to optimize your improvement. So we might as well go there now. So you've got a history. You said you're a bassist and you took a course or like attended a workshop from a legendary bassist named Victor Wooten, who I was not familiar with. But let's hear the story, Omar.
So this one, it seems like everything that significant in my life comes through a lesson in pain. Starts out painful. And I think that's very applicable for chess because chess is pain many days. And that's the part that's really jarring when you first get into it. You don't expect, like, I've lost a bunch of games of, I don't know, pick a thing, Monopoly, backgammon, basketball, what have you, but I don't remember them. It depends on the significance. Like if it's a championship game or something like that you played in high school, you remember that. But chess, I remember all those losses. Every single one sucks. So with bass, how I came to know Victor Wooten, or I should say meet Victor Wooten, it came through a 2-week span of some of the most devastating things that had happened to me as a musician. The first was I auditioned for a band, thought I played well, and was doing all right up until they threw to me for a solo, and I froze. And I remember distinctly, like, I'm an ear player more than I am like I can read tabs, but I'm primarily an ear player for 30 years. Like if I can hear it, I can play it. You know, had maybe about 6 months of lessons, and the bulk of what I've learned on stage. And I've grown up playing primarily in church bands and what have you. And that's where I weaned, you know, my skills was in church. And the role of a bass player is very unique in that you have to be in lockstep with your drummer. You have to be listening to your band leader. There's usually somebody in your ear saying, go to the 1, go to the 5, you know, the Nashville number system, telling you where in the key you need to be and all those things. And this is all stuff that I don't know because I'm the type that's like, hey, play it. And once they play it, I find it. And then I can play around it. But it takes me a minute to get there. And when you're if you have memorized patterns and you don't know theory, if they change key on you, you struggle because you've got to find it again. And sometimes music is so complex that you can't find it fast. I have to hear it. Like, so I'm advantageous in the sense that because of that skill, I can play in gigs with top musicians. Like I can enter to make it chess relevant. I can enter into the open section at an event just on instinct, but I will get destroyed by the top players that are in there. And what happens is the top musicians know that they have many of them have ears as well, but they also have theory. And what will happen is you get called out. And so I just want to use that to sort of frame things up a little bit to tell you what had happened. One, I didn't get that gig, so I'm a little bummed because this was a band of musicians who were tip top, but they were improv, more jazz, and things. And you can't show up in fake jazz. You got to know it, or jam bands. You have to know. It's not enough to just be, ear good. You've got to have theory. You've got to know, okay, in the key of pick a key, these are the things that I can do. This is what I can do within the scale. Those are the things that you have to be proficient in. And I wasn't. And so that was strike one. That week in the church band that I was playing in, I had replaced a guy who was phenomenal, in this band. Guy's name was Miles. Miles had left to go to another church. And I begged, the minister of music. I was like, hey, can I get that slot? Because I had been the person that they would call when somebody couldn't make it. There were that many bass players in the church. And so I didn't have a roster spot. And so they gave me Miles a spot. In this particular week, John calls me up and he's like, hey, man, come to the house. And, what we're working on this week is really complex. So I go to the house and I'm seeing, he's starting to show it to me and I'm trying to get it, trying to hear it. And it's complex stuff. There's about 4 songs. They're all very tough. And he looks at me and he says, maybe you want to sit out this week.
That hurts.
Yeah,
Ouch.
it absolutely hurts. Like maybe this isn't your week. And so pride is powerful and ego is powerful. And I'm like, nah, man, no, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. He kind of said, all right. Like he loved me so much that he didn't want to disappoint me. But at the same time, he's trying to gently tell me, this is not for you this week. You're okay, but this gig is above. But I'm reeling because I just didn't get the other gig. So that just happened. And now I'm being told in another way, about 1250, Omar. You're not 2000, you're 1250. And I'm like, no, I'm going to push through. No, I can do this. Well, little did I know that Miles was coming back to the church. And so I show up on Sunday and I got my gear and everything and I'm setting up and I look up at the door and I see a dude come through and he's got a bass bag on his shoulder. And I recognize him. And I'm like, what's Miles doing here? He left months ago. And he's got, so he comes walking up, he comes up on stage and I look over at John and John's not making eye contact with me. And I look at Miles and I say, what you got there? And he's like, oh, this. He points to his bass, his gig bag. And he's like, oh, man, I brought this just in case. I'm singing today. I'm not playing, but I just had it. All right. So I said, okay, well, how about you have it over there? And so I'm not moving. Like John's going to have to tell me to leave because now I'm like determined. And so we had 2 services. We played through the first service. And then I played so angry that I managed to pop the G string on my bass, which if you've ever held a bass, the strings are so thick that when I've told other people this story, they're like, how in the world you pop a string on a bass? Like a guitar is one thing. A bass, like you got to try to like pop. And so I was playing that aggressively and that angrily. Finished the set on 3 strings and did not have any because you don't ever pop bass strings. I didn't have a spare set in my gig bag. And so now we're back in the green room in between waiting for the next service to come up. And I'm sitting there and I'm seething because you've brought this dude in. You've already told me I'm not good enough. You let me get up. You bring him in anyway with a bass guitar on his shoulder. He's like, oh, I'm just going to sing. And now I'm in the back and I'm embarrassed because I had to finish the set on 3 strings. It sounded awful. And now I'm back here and I'm feeling like I suck. And so while I'm sitting there, I ask, around the room, like, hey, does anybody have an extra set of bass strings? And one of the keyboard players is like, what kind of basses are you? You don't have any strings in your bag. So now I'm getting that energy. And Miles is sitting there and he looks at me and just unsolicited off the cuff. Now, mind you, at the time, Miles had been playing, he'd been playing then as long as I've been playing now. And so that was the difference. I'm again, it's a 2,300 level player looking at somebody who's 1,000. Like that's the dynamic.
Right.
And he looks at me and he says, Omar, your playing style is kind of soft. And I look up at him. Now I'm sitting and he's kind of leaning against, we had where this church was. It was in what was typically a place where like a stage, like actors, it's like a college where there's, you could have performances. And so we're back in the green room where the performers would be getting ready. So where he's leaning against is this wall of mirrors with all these lights. And so I'm sitting at the table where if somebody were putting makeup on, they'd be sitting there, but he's sitting on the table sort of looking down at me with his back to the mirror. And the room is full. It was a big Sunday gig that we were doing. And you got about 15, 16 people back there. It's like literally on the nose, metaphorically, it was like a church mouse. It was quiet
Right.
when he said that to me. Yes, that was kind of soft. And I look at him and I said, man, I'm going to need you to qualify that. Like, what are you trying to say? Because now this is feeling like are we still talking about bass? This feels kind of personal to me. And he says, well, no, man. It's just, he had his bass out. And he goes, play something. Hands it to me. Play your best lick. Play it. Show me. So I play the thing I know to play, like my best opening, so to speak.
Right.
He listens. He's kind of watching. He said, okay. He said, hand me the bass. Everybody's watching this in the room. I handed him the bass. He took my best lick and destroyed me. He killed it. And I'm sitting there. When he got done, he put the bass down and he said, see, that's what I mean. Soft. And I was like, if you've ever been in a situation in your life where you want to cry, but you're doing everything you can not to cry. Because I failed the gig, I busted my G-string, and now I got smoked by the guy I replaced. And I'm like, man, I should have just stayed home today. So I get up and I walk out and I go to an area somewhere in the back and I fell apart and cried like a baby and was like, man, I don't know that I'll ever pick this instrument up again. Well, I told that story to my bass teacher at the time, a guy named Anthony Wellington, who was Victor Wooten's bass tech. And so I told Anthony, I'm like, man, this is what happened. I didn't get this gig. And I got embarrassed. He said, man, Omar, come out. We're having a bass clinic. He's like, all my students are coming to this clinic. You should come out. Victor's going to be in town. And so I said, okay, well, where is it? I get the information. I drive out to, where he was having it. And there's about 70 bass players in the area. Victor comes in and he's got all his basses set up and everything. And if those of you that are watching or listening to this, just Google Victor Wooten and you'll hear like he's just phenomenal. He is like, I've called him the Hikaru of bass players. He's that good. He's amazing. Victor plays 20 minutes. He gets up, just doesn't say anything to anybody, walks in, puts the bass on his shoulder, and plays 20 minutes on bass. And mind you, you would have thought there were 4 basses playing the way he has a style and a technique called tapping that he does, where you think it's multiple instruments, but it's just him. And I wish somebody had recorded what he was doing. I would have paid for it just in that 20 minutes off the top of his head. He then stops playing and he looks at us. There's 70 of us just in awe, like we just heard God play. And he goes, does anybody want to play? And we're all like, no, I'm not following that. I'm not following you. So one kid, and I wish I had been this kid, kid had been playing about 5 years. He was brave. He got up and he got a chance he played with Victor. And I wish I had been brave enough to do it. But my confidence was shattered from the week I had just had. Well, once they opened up Q&A, I got a chance to ask a question. And the first thing I told Victor was, I said, man, you're the reason why I want to get better. You're my inspiration. And he literally said that he was sorry that he had inspired me to want to play. And that's like understanding, like, if somebody says, oh, I play chess because of you, I would almost say the same thing, like, oh, wow, I'm sorry I did that to you because I know what I've done to you. And Victor was saying it from that perspective. And so what I asked him was, I said, man, how do you deal with making mistakes when you play? Because that was something that I was struggling with. I said, man, I'm terrified to make a mistake. And he told us a story about how he was playing with, he used to play with Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, and they toured all over the place. And he said he was on stage, and he, from what I understand, he tells us variations of this story quite a bit. So if you YouTube it, you'll probably hear him talk about his mindset on making mistakes while he's playing. And he said he was playing, with Bella Fleck, and he made a mistake, and there were some people in the front that he could see, in this huge audience, and they kind of, they're making the face like, oh, we know you messed up. And he said when that part of the song came around again, he played the wrong note on purpose and looked at him. in the audience, as if to say, no, now I've decided that this is how that song goes. And he told us that story, and he said, you can't be afraid to make a mistake, but own it. You might make some. He said, who said it's a mistake? He's like, that note, I can make that note work, was what he meant. And from what I've been told, when he talks about making mistakes while playing, he talks about it in that regard. Like, who's to say I can't make that work? Why is that a mistake? Who decides that note is the wrong note? It's a note. And it changed the philosophy that I had around, it redefined failure for me, in that moment, at least where the base was concerned. And it's why I still play, because to have that moment, to get smoked by the guy that you replaced and to have him embarrass you in such a fashion in front of a room full of people, and to cry and to have to find your way back to some semblance of yourself and want to keep going after that, and to find the wherewithal, even more importantly, than to forgive, because he apologized to me. Both he and John apologized to me after that went down, and it took a lot for me. I don't know that it was immediate. You say the right things, you're at church, so you figure, well, I'm supposed to. But it was painful for a very long time. But what I find is that the greatest revenge is a forgiving heart. And when I forgive, I forgive in such a way that the offense never happened. That to me is the best way to do it, because if you don't, then it owns you. I don't want to be in a position where I share a story like that because it still hurts, but to share it in the context of, here's a thing, and look what I was able to learn from what could have been a very painful experience. I was able to forgive someone, and that's a life lesson. That's because if you can forgive and restore, well, then who can hurt you? No one. It's impossible for people to hurt you. And think about how you can apply that in your life and what you can do with that. So I try to bring that kind of a mindset to chess and to chess growth as an adult where it comes to failure, because the minute you can say, what can I learn from how I failed in this moment? What can that 15-game tilt teach me? If you keep going, it teaches you perseverance, if nothing else, or it teaches you what not to do. Don't do that again. How about you cut those games off at a certain, cap them after a certain time. After 3, walk away, or something to that, to that effect. But it redefines failure to where there is no failure. There's only progress. There's a saying I have that you never hear a tree grow. You plant an acorn in the ground, and one day you come outside and there's a tree there. You didn't hear it grow, but there it is. And chess growth is a lot like that. But in order to really blossom in, as a chess tree, as it were, you have to be okay with the fact that there are going to be some wounds. There are going to be some Mileses in your life that smoke you.
He sounds pretty petty to me, man. I gotta say.
Oh, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's absolutely. Yeah, it was, otherwise, why would he wouldn't have apologized if it wasn't.
I didn't know. Okay. I didn't know he apologized. Because, congratulations. You're better at pace than him.
Exactly. Yeah, it's 100% that. And Miles, if you're listening, man, I got no ill will, man. We good. But when you look at situations like that and you say, oh, man, that was petty. Man, some people are going to be petty. I
was going to say, I'm sure you encounter it in the chess world. It's probably mostly online, but
online, I've created nicknames off of the things that I've been called. One of my nicknames is Mr. 900.
Remember that one?
Yeah, Susan Polgar had posted a puzzle, and I responded to it, and somebody in the thread was like, well, that doesn't make any sense, Mr. 900 or something. And I'm like, that stung. How can I make that, something that I remember fondly, and so I try to do that with all those things. And then if you take failure off of the table, well, then all that's left is growth. Pain only remains pain until it becomes purpose. And I would say this, I would not change a single one of those things, because without Miles embarrassing me in a green room, I never meet Victor Wooten, because I never call Anthony and say, this is what happened. And he never says, hey, you should come out. And I wouldn't trade meeting Victor Wooten for anything, or getting that story from him about, the so-called wrong note. I wouldn't trade that. But it doesn't happen unless I get embarrassed.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, when were these incidents?
Wow. I want to say this would have been 2006.
Okay, so it really left a mark. We're talking about 19 years ago, and you tell it like it was yesterday.
It's sadly, I couldn't tell you all the details of what was a wonderful moment, but if it's a painful moment, you remember it literally like it's yesterday. And again,
Yeah.
it's one thing to forgive; it's a hard thing to let it go. You know,
Yeah.
and that's the work that remains.
And
To be
are you
done.
still playing bass, Omar?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I just recently picked it back up. I had reached a point, and maybe this will help somebody. I had let it go after the pandemic. I was playing in a band at church again, and then when the pandemic happened, we couldn't go anywhere, and so I put it down, and I hadn't touched it in a while. And I remember thinking, I'm like, you know what? That instrument has been very painful in terms of some of the things, like even how I picked it up. It's a interesting, painful story why I even started playing it in the first place. But I had put it up. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm focused on chess. That had its time. I'm going to let that go. And I recently found a new church that I'm going to. And I was talking to some of the members of the band, and just in small talk, I was like, yeah, I used to play, bass. And they were like, oh man, we're looking for bass players. And I said jokingly, I'm like, yeah, churches are always looking for bass players, but nope, I'm done. I put it away. And they kept pushing me to audition. And they're like, no, man, you should audition. Well, I get to the audition, like I hadn't played in a while. I get all the rust off. I played for, practice for a month straight just to get the chops right. Figured out the songs I was going to have to audition with, went up, played them, thought I smoked it, and didn't get it. And I remember being a little bit devastated. Like, I can't believe, like, wait, I followed the recipe. I'm supposed to have a cake, at the end of this thing. And what came out of it, I'm very good at running from painful situations or things that, like, again, and with church and bass, when you have a story in your life, like the one I just told you about Miles, and then you try again on something and you don't get the outcome that you want, and it's related to those things that were very painful, it's very easy to run away and to say, you know what, let me go cocoon, let me go and hide, and I'm not going to do that anymore. This is the first time I can think of in my life that I didn't run. I stayed. I'm still there. I hung in there. And I will try again, when those auditions come up again, because I think there's something to it. There's something to keeping, continuing and to try again and to, because again, and taking failure off of the table. Because once you do, the only thing that remains is growth. Pain is only pain until there's a purpose behind it. And when I think about all the different things, the ridicule I've gotten online through playing, the pain and the losses, the tilts, I talk about all of it, being not afraid to play, but afraid to lose. Friends would challenge me to games and I'd duck them because I didn't want to feel like, go through the emotional pain of being devastated because I was too scared that I was going to, like, I talk about all that stuff because I'm so passionate about chess and want to get better, but I tied my value to it and my worth to it. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with being passionate about something that you love, but you have to understand that you have worth and you have value apart from that. Because if you don't, chess is a thing that will invite you to tether your worth to it. I mean, there's a literal number telling you, you are this, you are 1250, you are this, you are that. And if you're not careful, you will live and die by that number. You will live and die by what that number tells you. And I still struggle with it. It's something that I'm still working out in real time. But what I find is lean into those painful moments and don't waste a good storm, because there's so much that it'll teach you about yourself, so much it'll teach you about life that you can then teach others. And that's what, again, I didn't set out to do that, but that's what that course ended up becoming. It's stories like that that are really going to frame you not just as a chess player, because if you can have, steel in your spine and pain brings that, you're not going to be fearful when you get ready to play. You'll have a mindset of, I can beat anybody. And the truth is you can. You absolutely can. You're not playing the person, you're playing the position on the board. And why not you? It just takes time. But if you don't believe, then you're never going to beat anybody. It starts with, it's a focus long before it's anything else. So that's how I try to approach it. And again, I want to reiterate again, the best revenge is forgiving, because you can't carry that baggage, with you into whatever the next thing it is that you're going to do. So I'm trying to live in that way with relative to those things and just continuing to press. And it's hard, but it's worth it.
Yeah. One of the things, as I wrote in my book, Omar, that keeps me coming back to chess, especially for me, tournament chess, but the immersive quality of it, like whatever else is going on, in your life, it's an opportunity to channel focus and kind of not think about other stuff. I'm curious, as a predominantly online player,
Yeah.
like, are you able, when you play, does the outside world disappear, or are you like kind of multitasking when you play? I'm just
Oh man,
curious.
I'm locked in. I wish I had discovered chess when I was younger. I don't know why. I think I'm just obsessive in this way. I get up every day at 4 to train, and you'd think I'd be better at it when you get up that early. Chess is just hard, man. I think about where I was when I started and how advanced the field has become in just the 4 years since I've been doing it. And that's part of it too. Part of it is undisciplined habits, the discipline to get up, but the lack of discipline to, as an adult, to study. Like, I didn't have a solid training plan until Robert gave me one. And I'd been, prior to Robert and I training together, I'd been playing for a couple of years. And Robert was like, his counterblow course had just come out, and we had connected I'd met him at an event, and I'd been wanting to train with him for a while. And he was like, hey, I'm going to do a group. It was me and one other guy that were working with him. And he said, 16 weeks.
Yeah, I saw this is
yeah,
on YouTube, by the way.
yeah. Okay. So you've seen that.
Yeah.
And he gave us that training plan. He's like, look, the only thing I'm asking is that you stick with it for the entire time. Well, once I had that, it was like, oh, for the first time, I actually have a target, because I would get up and I'd say, training for me was, I'm all right, I'm getting up and I'm gonna play a bunch of games. And I'll get up tomorrow and I'll play a bunch of games. And I might do a bunch of puzzles. I might do this. Like, I didn't have any plan. I'm going to study openings. And that was, for a long time, it was, if I just find the right opening, then I'll be golden. And particularly, I'm still trying to find it.
Let me know when you find that secret.
Exactly, right? Especially for black. Like, it's like, and then you have people that'll tell you, well, at your level, you don't need openings. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I don't, but I bought all these books. And I bought all these courses that, I don't need these, at my level. So then it was a book. Well, if I just get this book, I remember David Minsick made fun of me on this. He and I had been doing some sparring together. I had posted a picture of my first set of chess books. I had about 15 books. And I posted a picture on X, then Twitter, of my chess books. And it was right before my first event. And he goes, oh man, all you got to do is like memorize every single thing in all those books, and you'll win your section, or something. That he just clowned me, right. About
He's
it.
He's
Miles, like, like, man, you just learn all those books, man. You're unbeatable on this. And I got that. At first, I didn't understand what he meant, but then later on, I'll be like, it clicked. Like, it was probably after I lost a bunch of games at that event. As an online player, primarily, you're locked in. I don't multitask. I lock in. And I think I at least want to give, I don't really play a ton on my phone anymore. I did for a while. It's too easy to just be too casual about it. So if I'm playing, it's generally on a computer, and I have a set time now of this 30 minutes, you're focused on this, either whether it be rapid game, whether it be blitz game, or if I'm playing a classical online, which I don't like to do, but I love sparring people who I know aren't going to cheat. And so I'll do sparring again, and I try and do it against much stronger players. I want to get Cameron Hellman and I, for example, play a bunch of games against one another, and Cameron's 2,000 something.
Yeah, she's good.
And everything. Yeah, and so when you get beaten up by the Cameron Hellmans or the Nick Vissels or folks like that, you get better, and they'll even stick around and say, okay, here is how I beat you. And so I try to let that be the focus. And then those games, I'm getting more disciplined in saying, all right, you don't necessarily have to do written analysis on all these, but if you play these, take the time to get into that, to start to build the habit, so that you will get better, doing the thing, applying the things that work. You just haven't developed the discipline to actively do it. And so I'm getting there. The truth is, I think had I been younger, not an adult improver, I'd be much further along in that rating, because I would have applied the things that I know work, but I don't practice. And that's the hard thing, because to your point earlier, I enjoy playing so much that I haven't figured out how to find the joy in the study. And that's something that Andres Toth said to me. He told me, Omar, I love analyzing my games. You've got to find the joy in the study and the joy in the process. You've got to fall in love with the problem, as they say. And I'm learning how to do that. And that starts with, I believe, again, it being a focus long before it's a feeling. I'm never going to feel like doing it. But if I focus on it, eventually I'm going to discover the joy in it. And when I start to see the outcome, it'll be like, oh, man, like, again, you don't get to 70% winning percentage in March without being intentional about tactics. I had to do 7 hours of tactics and limit the amount of games I was playing. And that was the result. I know it works. It's like eating clean. If you eat clean, you're going to get in shape. It's less about the weights and more about the diet. It's kind of that. I'm eating my vegetables, so to speak.
Well said. Yeah. And in your course, the final chapter is a study plan, but to the extent that you can reveal it. So like, what did Robert impart to you, or what would you advise in terms of someone trying to be a bit more regimented?
So Robert, again, and I like the time frame he said of 4 months of 16 weeks. And one of the things that Robert did, and if anybody's interested in this, I'm sure you can reach out to him or to me, and I can send you the link. It's a Google Doc that he had, and you can take that in, because he had opened it up for a bunch of us during that time. And it's really excellent. He had it broken up. Every day you had to do something. There was always a rest day, at least one. And what he would work into, let's take Monday, for example. He would have in one slot, he would always start out with a pre-work, which was always like Puzzle Rush. Just something to warm up, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, just something to wake your brain up. And then he would have tactics, but he would have an FEN that he would paste into a cell. And in that, you would click out to that and you would spend, all right, I'm going to allot you 12 minutes for this positional tactic and tell me what you come up with. And so we would try different things and write down what it would be, what our solutions were. And we knew we were going to meet with him on Thursday, and he would go over it with us and say, nope, that's not right. Tell me what he would review it. Tell me what you did for this particular tactic. And if you were right, he'd be like, oh, okay, what was your continuation? Like, it wasn't obvious what he was setting up in those. Then he might have say, all right, 15 minutes, you're going to go on chess tempo, and you're going to play a blitz set for 15 minutes, and, let me know how you do. And then it might be watch this video. It typically was one of his on YouTube that was there for free. And we would watch, some of those things where we would get a lesson in that regard. Then he would bake in rest for 7 minutes. So you're halfway through, and there would always be this section where 7 minutes you're going to rest. He would force you, to kind of get up, walk away. And then when you would come back, you might do some more tactics or what have you. And generally it was about an hour, no more than an hour, 15 minutes that he would allot for that for an adult, doing this. And games were always optional. He would say you can pick a number, no more than 7, and these are going to, pick a time control, and that's going to cap your games if you want. It was never mandatory. There was a game day, and that was usually like on Wednesday. And he would say you can play 1, 15, 10. And then you're going to, with analysis. And so that's usually an hour, in and of itself, like warm up. And then you're going to play your 15, 10. Thursday might be a complete rest day. If we were getting ready for an event, you cut off all chess like by Thursday going into that Saturday or what have you. And we repeated some variation of this study plan of like one day might be end games, where he would say, okay, end games, you're going to go on chess.com and you're going to set a range from 2100 to 2500, and you're just going to work on pawn end games. He might have, again, some mix of video. It might be something from a book. It could be set your board up, and now you're going to set the position up, and now you're going to do it so you can have the tactile feel of the pieces. And this went on for 16 weeks to develop those habits and those disciplines to be able to do it. And what was interesting for me was I was fine so long as we had a check-in. Right. And the minute we got off of it, I went back to default habits. I think right after that, I started grad school, and so I lost all my discipline. And now I'm in the process of trying to get it back. But I promise you it works. 100% works.
Yeah, sticking with it is so hard. All right, well, just 2 more questions, I think, Omar. Number 1 is, this is kind of what your whole course is about, but if you could give your new-to-chess self from 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it was, like one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, man, it would be you are not your rating.
That, man, beautifully. Yeah, succinct and and
you are not your rating. That's 100% what I would tell myself.
The
other thing I might say as a follow-up is remember why you love this. What was interesting is when I first started playing years ago, I might have a night where I play 12 games. If I won 2, it was the greatest. Oh, my God, I won 2 games. Can't believe I actually won 2 games tonight, and loved it and loved getting beat. And now if I go 2 and 10, I'm like mad all day. Can't believe I'm trash. I'm this. The negative self-talk is the other thing I would say as a third.
Yeah.
Like, you don't say anything to yourself that you wouldn't say to your best friend or to your mom or to your dad or to your wife or your husband or your significant other or your child. Don't, treat yourself with the same level of respect that you would treat them, when you're talking about your performance, because you become what you think. And that's the other thing I would do. Those are things I wish I told my younger self from 4 years ago.
Man, great advice there too that goes beyond the borders of chess. And last thing, like as I mentioned at the top, our How to Chess interview was about tournament chess. I saw you haven't been competing much. Like, where are you with tournament chess? You think you'll be back, or are you sticking to online?
Online for the moment. What's funny is I keep signing up for stuff, and then I don't play the events either.
Do you get your money back, or
I do get the money back?
Business?
Okay. At first, what's funny is I didn't know you could initially. Like, so I've entered a bunch of things, and I reached out to I think Central Florida Chess Club or one of them, and was like, can I actually get this back? And they were like, yeah, you've actually got a balance. And it was big.
Yeah.
And, because from events that I had, withdrawn from. And I was like, oh man, I didn't realize it was that bad. I do want to get back into it. Grad school. I'm in seminary right now. So it's tough.
I don't know how you manage that with your chess obsession and your 9 to 5. That's a lot.
I'm crazy and I have to do hard things. It's I'm just driven in that way. But that's what's made it tough is the school, and like I said, it's when school's in, it's hard for me to do anything. I want to get back to it. Part of it is just forcing myself to just go and do it. And I think once I do my next one, I'll be back in the mix. It's easy to kind of fall out of the habit. And for me, I'm 100% a creature of habit. Yeah. And I think once I do my next one, I'll remember why I love it, and I'll want to get back to it. I always do.
No, I'm in the same boat with you on the tournament front, so you certainly won't catch me judging. Sometimes it's just a bridge too far.
Facts.
All right, well, Omar, the course, I mean, like I said, if you're like a grandmaster, probably you'll get as much from this interview out of the course. But if you're newer to chess, there's a lot of wisdom in what Omar's been through. You can learn from a lot of his mistakes. I think they say like shave someone else's face or cut someone,
something like that. Yeah, that's all I hope, man, is that people can learn how to, for beginners. Somebody gave I don't know if it was a review or just a forum comment, in there, that it was more of is great for the beginner mindset. It's stuff that I wish I had known when I started, that I wish somebody had told me. I think that there's like with a lot of chess content, there's rewatchability, with it. Like, so if you get it, people have asked me like, well, should I get it with the video? I would say this: if you're listening to this or watching this and you got anything out of what we're doing here, this is what the videos would be. This is what they're like. You can get stuff out of it. I wrote the course, so there's a lot of it in terms of what's written as well. But there's nuances and stories, and it becomes more organic in the video portion. So I would never tell anybody, I'm not in your pocket. I'm not going to ever tell anybody how to spend their money. But I know that there's things that we did when we shot the video. We wrote the course, about a year beforehand, and it had to go through all of the approvals through Chessable. So by the time we were ready to do the video, I'm a year older, and there are things that I can look at and give more nuance. For example, I was playing D4. I was experimenting with D4 at the time I wrote the course. But by the time I did the video, I had come back to E. And so I have to say that. I'm like, when I wrote this, I was doing this, but so much time has gone by in terms of what the process is to even put one of these courses out, and how things have to get approved, and you have to check the chess, because it's me writing it, and I'm still very green. So I worked with some of the folks at Chessable who are FIDE masters and what have you, and they were like, hey, you want to make sure that like check this line and check this and make sure that this is what you're looking at. So they helped me with a lot of those pieces, and I could speak to it a little bit better when I was getting ready to walk through the chess portion of what we were doing. But again, there had been some growth and some change in that piece of it. And so that's some of the benefit that I think you get from the video over just the written portion as well, is that I'm a year older and a year more advanced when I'm telling the stories around that as well.
Okay. Well, the course is called Chess Destiny: Lessons from an Adult Improver and His Coach. And Omar, always fun to talk chess and life.
Thank you, man. This, like I said, man, this is a Grail interview for me. This is the one I've been wanting for a long time, and just grateful, man, that you would give me the opportunity. And grateful to you all for even listening to me and caring at all about what I'm doing.
All right. Keep up the good work. Take care, Omar.
Thank you, brother.